And we're back with another Shacknews Game of the Year 2022 deliberations. You know, they say that life is a highway. We want to ride it all night long. And a great way to do that is with racing games because, let's face it, at some point you're going to get tired and you don't want to be like actually out driving around. No, you want to be able to put the controller down and just go to bed safely. But with that in mind, best racing game 2022. We have a few nominations to get to. And you know, it's a racing game. Let's go fast. We gotta go. We don't have to go fast, but let's go fast because that's what racing games are all about. Who would like to go first with their nomination?
I'll kick us off. We had an early one this year that I snatched up for Indylicious once I saw it because it's very relevant to my interests, and I know it's relevant to a lot of folks' interests here. Buck Up and Drive. This game was done by one dude, very very small team. It's a lot like Outrun, and but like more ridiculous. The premise is similar. You drive down the road trying to make it to checkpoints before time runs out, but along the way you can bump other cars off the road. You get in road rash fights with police. You have to you can jump your car and do Tony Hawk, or I guess more apt Cruisin' USA esque flips and tricks, including jumping onto guardrails and grinding your car like a skateboard along them. This game is stupid and hilariously fun. It's also super challenging. Like, you make it through a section and you get more time, but you have to make it to that section or your run ends. And there's regular like sections that you have to race through, like cities and towns and beaches. There's also sections like you drive on the moon or you drive underwater in the sea, and the environment design in this game is just silly. It's also kind of beautiful at the same time, and they did a good job with the cell shading. But ultimately, this was just a fun, ridiculous, silly arcade racer that just snatched my heart and never got away from me, despite the fact that it came out so early in the year.
I will say too, GG, you left out the fact that when you drift, like you almost go completely sideways, and it does that anime thing where like the screen like gets close up and does the little outskirts of like.
Yeah.
I loved that. I thought that was hilarious.
The dramatic speed lines
the
on
initial
on the
D,
screen.
like overhyped, like you're completely sideways. It doesn't make sense, but it's hilarious because they're parodying it, which is great. Like that's what I was laughing every single time TJ drifted, just the complete sideways of the car and the initial D like thing that comes out when he's racing.
Yeah. This game is just it's a buffet of driving goodness.
Man, I love a good arcade racer, and like Outrun, that era of racing games, and Cruisin' USA, Cruisin' World, like all of those titles were like some of my favorites ever in the arcades. Yeah, so it's definitely you put it on my radar, TJ. I appreciate that. It's much like David in every horror game that we've talked about in deliberations so far this year that he hasn't played. This is definitely something that's going on my wish list, if not just being bought outright, probably later today. Right. We have a couple other nominations though, so let's keep on going. Let's keep our pedal to the metal here. Vroom vroom. Who would like to go next? Oh, did we hit a wall? Maybe we hit a wall and crashed. All right. Well, you know what? I'll bring up Asif's nomination here. Red Out 2. I don't know what it is. Like cars racing, not really my thing, but you put me in a spaceship on crazy ass like whirling tracks and stuff like that. Give me some put some boosters on the ground and send me flying. All of a sudden I'm really into it. Red Out 2 is kind of in the vein of your F-Zeros, of your Wipeouts. It's a similar style of racer. It has some it looks really clean. It has a great sense of speed when you're playing it, and like it has some of the most impressively designed tracks of the year, I think.
I mean that it's people have been begging Nintendo to make a new F-Zero, and when other people are doing F-Zero better because they don't touch that franchise, like people love that game. There's a demand for that game,
Yeah.
and Redout, from what I've seen and what I've read, it's spiritually successful to that franchise. And if you like F-Zero, people are playing that. So
Yeah,
it's
it
good.
doesn't. Yeah, it's a lot of like that same sort of stuff where like you've got your boosters, you've got to like keep your health bar up, uh, you know, things deplete depending on what you're doing. So you gotta keep your ship healthy while going at top speed around all these crazy twists and turns, flying through the air and then landing on a platform that's above you instead of below you, type of things. You know, crazy gravity, wild tracks. That's what Redout 2 is all about. That's why you got to go fast in Redout 2. All right, let's see. We have a few other nominations here that we should get through. Let's see. I think Morgan just stepped away for a moment, but in the meantime, oh, you know what? Oh no, Ozzy's not here either. He can't talk about it. Let's see. Donovan,
I mean,
you
I
want to
did
talk
play
about?
their nomination. Are you talking about Gran Turismo?
I am. Well, I guess yeah, Bill. You can go for Gran Turismo 7 then.
I'm not the biggest advocate. It'd be better if one of them were there, but I did play Gran Turismo this year, and I believe Gran Turismo is one of the first racing games that I ever truly got into back in the. It must have been the OG PlayStation, honestly. And so I was really excited for Gran Turismo 7, and I thought that it actually did a lot of things really, really well. I know that the way that you could unlock cars by earning currencies and then actually going and buying the cars from a lot, and collecting information about the cars, and they had it presented through like a cafe style where you could actually go in and like open up the menu and like you could see the different cars that were available. And I thought that was kind of a cool twist. The racing itself, of course, in Gran Turismo, I think it's always been pretty great. Being able to tune your car to your own specifications. Obviously, there's a huge variety in tracks. There was a massive variety in the kind of weather that you would see, depending on the location. And of course, the weather would affect how vehicles would perform on certain tracks and surfaces. When you get into like very highly detailed racing, like the temperature of the track has a huge impact on things. So it was definitely going for a sprinkle of realism with that. It did look phenomenal. Yeah, I mean, if you've played Gran Turismo, I don't think that it's necessarily the most groundbreaking thing that you've ever seen, but it is Gran Turismo.
I can speak to it too. My brother, who races cars as a hobby, like he really likes the Gran Turismo 7 because it's a sim. It's a racing sim. Like I mean, they go the extra mile to add that sense of realism, like Bill said, where the temperature of the day or the track affects how your car handles. They went out in real time and like scanned real life racing tracks and put them in the game. Some of the courses, if you run those, you can get certified in real life to run those courses via Gran Turismo 7, and like that's just an insane amount of detail for a video game. You know, not to mention a mainstream one, because there's stuff that's pretty niche out there. There's other racing sims that are more realistic or less popular, but like Gran Turismo like nails it on front if you really want that realistic sim game that's approachable but has that level of depth if you really like realistic racing.
I don't know how approachable this game is, to be honest. I feel like there is a wall that I usually hit with Gran Turismo games where my skill and ability with it don't necessarily get me any further.
It's
Um,
most. It is. I think you're right, Blake. If you don't mind, it's definitely a preference, right? There's going to be like certain racers that appeal to certain people, and just the way that their gameplay styles and their preferences match. And I think that you're right. Like Gran Turismo, I don't know if it's the most hyper realistic thing ever. I mean, it in terms of racers. I think there are some out there that are a little bit more hardcore, but to your point, like this is an investment, right? Like it's not something where you can just kind of like hop in and have like a super fun time and it's like awesome and rewarding in that sense. Like you kind of get out of this what you put into it in terms of like attention to detail and like tuning your car and planning and everything else. So I think that it can definitely be off-putting for some folks that way.
Yeah. I will say this. It's so shiny. It's so pretty. It's such a shiny, pretty game. It looks so good. All the cars look so shiny and pretty. And I really think that that's something that like you talk about, like how you can get track certified. It's because that level of detail and realism that they get into these games is so meticulous, and they really deserve credit for that. And I think that speaks to, like, all the tweaking and customization and stuff. It's all things you can do with cars in real life as well, and it totally plays into that fantasy, that like sim fantasy of actually being a racer, for sure. So yeah, I can definitely see that as a best racing game pick. Even if I suck at it, uh, you know, I respect it. Okay. Any more nominations? Donovan.
Yeah, I had You Suck at Parking down in Indy. They kind of flew under the radar. More of a zany obstacle course sort of racing game where you're jumping through flaming hoops or dodging like spikes and cars are blowing up and stuff. A very cartoonish art style, but it's a lot of fun. It's a cool spin on the racer. I love my traditional racing sims, but I don't know. I found myself drawn to more fantastical games in the genre this year.
I played that game, and it is Donovan's right. It is really fun and crazy and hectic, and it's trying to beat your own score at a park or fighting others to get to the parking spot first. It makes for some really fun experiences.
So, is there multiplayer aspects to this game where you're actually racing against other people to park first?
Yep. There's a
Okay,
couple
so it's,
different modes, but those are a part of what's in it.
I mean, is the main thing that the like the obstacle course stuff though? Like, is the racing secondary to like the puzzle aspects of it?
I wouldn't say so.
There is a racing aspect to it. Like you are trying to beat someone to something. So yeah, right.
Or even
All
on your
right.
own, you're trying to. There is time. You're being measured against a time.
You're racing the clock.
I mean, we get pretty loose with our sports definition, so I feel like this is
All right, fair enough. We'll allow it. I'm allowing it. All right, motion sustained. Gavelled. There we go. Would you like to say would anyone else like to say anything about You Suck at Parking? Just a cute, fun little title where you suck at parking. Doing little puzzles. Looked like Trials to me. Reminded me of Trials when I was watching it. Which is not a bad thing. Trials is a great game. But I guess with that, it's time to vote. Vroom, vroom. Here we go. Who would like to start us off? You know what, Steve? Let's keep things moving down the line. So I'm going to start with you.
Okay, TJ pretty much sold me on Buck Up and Drive, and how can I not go with a game that has on the Steam page a Steve Was Here image on the truck? So I gotta go with Buck Up and Drive.
All right, David O'Craddock.
Yeah, You Suck at Parking sounds really charming, but I think Buck Up and Drive sounds like just super fun as well. So I'll go with that one.
All right, Denny.
Yeah, I still go with TJ's pick. I think after looking through it here, looks like the most likely one I would actually play compared to the stuff like Gran Turismo. So yeah, definitely going with that.
Donovan.
I'll vote for You Suck at Parking.
Greg Burkleton Burke.
Buck Up and Drive.
TJ.
Buck up and drive.
Look up and drive. Bill Lavoie.
My criteria coming into this was my vote was up in the air, and nobody did anything to convince me that their racer was the best more than listening to Asif talk about Redout 2 this year. So Redout 2.
All right. Does that get... You're in charge of Sam's vote, too. Remember that.
Well, I mean, I don't know about the legality of that, though.
You know,
We're
if
gonna
this
need a
was
ruling.
like... If I am going to allow it, because this isn't like he's voting for the next president. He's voting for best racing game.
I can confidently say Sam would have voted for Redout 2.
There you go. And also voted for Redout 2 as well. Let's see. I guess that leaves me. I'm going to use my pass for now. And I am going to check everyone else's votes. Well, Ozzy went with Gran Turismo 7. And I believe Morgan went with Gran Turismo 7 as well. So that is 2 for Gran Turismo 7. Well, you know what? I'll jump in the Redout 2 bandwagon there, but it's not going to be enough because with 5 votes, best racing game has gone to Buck Up and Drive. Buck Up and Drive.